Today we're going to create an upgrade button that when the player has collected a certain number of coins, they're able to click on the button and improve their jump ability so that they can more easily jump to more difficult challenges. But before we jump into that, there's something we need to talk about, and that is the basis of how Roblox works. Roblox in itself is a server-based game. Everything that when you launch the Roblox player, or when a client or when somebody clicks Roblox player, they are connecting to a remote server on a distant computer. That server is then loading the game onto your local computer, and that is referred to as a client server model. The client is the player, and the server is that remote computer. Now, the server provides the information in the gameplay that shows other players running around the environment. When you see another character doing something inside your game environment, that is all coming from the remote server. To simplify setting this up for you, the developer, Roblox has created a few key folders here. First of all, let's start from the bottom and work up. Let's start with the server storage. The server storage is information that is stored only on the server. Nothing is ever downloaded from the server storage to the client. Information is, but the scripts, the content that you put in server storage remains on the server. So nothing happens on the local computer, the client, to manage that information. Then we have the ServerScriptService. Now, much like the server storage, the ServerScriptService is specifically for placing scripts in. That could be a server-side script. It could be in a module script like we've created in the previous lessons, that you can store modules in either server storage or ServerScriptService. But again, they stay only on the server. The client computer doesn't do any of the processing for these two storage areas. So if you load a file like we have and create coin script and hazard service and put that in your server script service, that is only going to be run from the server. The local computer is not going to do any of that. Same with our server storage where we put our modules. Those are only on the server. They're not placed on the client's computer. Now, this gives us a certain level of security because all that information is stored only on the server, not on the client. We'll talk more about security and how to set up multiplayer game environments like this in a later tutorial. And if you want more information on doing multiplayer game development and design, let me know in the comments down below. That this is an area of specialization of mine. I teach classes in multiplayer game design all the time, so tell me about what you want to learn about that. Now, after talking about the server, you might think, well, when does something get loaded to the client, or where do I place something that is loaded to the client? Well, that is replicated storage. Replicated storage places the information both on the client and the server. Everything that is run from there, and this could include module scripts, local scripts, things that are run from the local computer can be placed in the replicated storage. And in just a few minutes, we're going to be using replicated storage to create our graphic user interface, which allows us to put the button on the screen. So replicated storage is very commonly used. It is primarily for GUI or local scripts, and we'll talk more about that as well. And then finally, something that we're not going to get into in this particular tutorial is the ReplicatedFirst. ReplicatedFirst is the first thing downloaded to the client. When someone clicks on a game that they want to play and it starts to load, the first thing that is loaded is ReplicatedFirst. That way, the player can start playing the game immediately and not wait on larger things from replicated storage to begin downloading to the local computer. And that's why you'll see some games, they're functional, but not everything is loaded immediately. And that's typically in ReplicatedFirst, you might have an onboarding or tutorial for how to play the game, local scripts, things like that need to be loaded very quickly right at the very beginning while everything else is downloaded. So those 4 folders are some of the most important folders that you're going to work with as you do a Roblox development. Today, we're starting on working with the GUI. So the GUI, Graphical User Interface, is a 2D interface placed in a 3D environment. So basically, it's kind of stapled over the top of it, and that gives you the ability to have buttons, information to your player, all kinds of really great things like that. We're going to go to Replicated Storage, hit plus, and let's create a new folder, and we'll rename this folder Instances. And then underneath Instances, we're going to add a Screen GUI object. Now you can scroll down, or you can just type in Screen. There's Screen GUI. Remember, Screen Graphical User Interface. In other words, this object is going to include buttons or text for the player to use. Next, let's rename the Screen GUI, and this is going to be for purchasing the jump button. This will be the button for purchasing a jump. So we're going to call it Jump Purchase GUI. And let's disable Reset on Spawn so that the 2D interface, the button stays associated with the player should they fall off and fall into the water, like or encounter other hazards inside the game. Now let's go ahead and add the button itself. Roblox has made that very easy, so we're going to click plus, go to text button, and now we have a text button. Let's rename that text button to our jump button. And then let's make a few little changes to the text. Scrolling down here in our properties, let's jump down to text, and let's give the players some instructions. So upgrade jump, and tell them how much an upgrade is going to cost. So they need to collect 5 coins to get the upgrade. And let's upgrade the text size to 25 so it's very readable, nice and big. And let's set the anchor point, which is back up here at the top. And we want to set this to 1, 1. To start adding the jump power information, we need to put that into our player data. That's where we're going to keep track of this. So in player data, let's scroll up here to the top, we're going to define a new player data type, player data, and this one's going to be called jump key name. And we will set that equal to jump. And that will define data, player data, being stored on the server, because this is stored in the server storage for our player data. This will store on the server for the player the information about that player's ability to jump and how high they can jump. And then let's scroll down, and we need to set the default jump capability for the player. So right bracket, and then player data dot jump key name, and we'll set that equal to 0. So by default, they will have no jumping ability at all. Now we don't need to make any other changes to our player data. We've just simply added a new piece of data that is going to be stored as part of that player data information. Because of the way we previously built our functions, everything is passed to it based upon what we're changing from our coin script or other script to store that information. So the next thing we need to do is tell Roblox that we're going to be changing the jumping power of our player. So in replicated storage, because we need this to pass between the client and in the server, we're going to go to our instances and we're going to create a remote function. Remote functions communicate with the server and then pass the information back to the client. A remote event, which is another commonly used one, only talks from the client to the server. Remote functions pass that information or talk between the client and the server. Now let's rename this remote function and we're going to call it increase jump power function. And that will be accessible. Sorry, my puppy. And now that we've got increased jump power function, we can define that in another script, but this function, this remote function, is now in replicated storage, and so it knows to pass that information between this client and the server. It's a little complex once we start getting into the whole multiplayer client-server architecture. So this is just some of the considerations when we do something like this. It is much easier to make just simply a single-player game where you're not communicating with the server. Now, before we start our scripting, we're going to go down here to Starter Player. This is our character that first appears on the screen. We're going to scroll down to the jump settings, and then we're going to turn on the character uses jump power. And that way we can change this in our script so that we have more control over the player's jump power. And we'll write the script next. Going up to our ServerScriptService, which right now includes our coin script and our hazard service. Let's add a new script. And this new script is going to be for our jump service. And we've already got it open. Let's get rid of the hello world. And let's start coding. So I've already added some comments so that we know what we're putting where. And we'll start out by loading in our services. And this is just like what we've done before. We're just simply accessing information that is part of our Explorer, loading it into the variables so that we have access to everything that's in replicated storage, server storage, and our player information. Then we need to load the modules that we've previously created, our leaderboard and our player data. And then we need to set up our events. Now this includes increasing the jump power, setting our jump key name, how much does it cost to upgrade the jump, how do we want to increment the jump power, etc. And as we've talked about before, we've connected to our increased jump power function that we created up here in our replicated storage. So now we have access to that remote event or remote function. We've also defined the jump key name, the coin key name, how much the power is going to go up by a measure of 30 each time, and then the jump coin cost is going to be 5. Capitalized, as we mentioned in previous ones, means that this should not be changed. These values should not be changed in code. We should only change them here where we've defined them. Let's get into our functions. So we got a local function, and we're going to update the jump power. And this function will take care of updating our player and the amount of jump that they have. And let's get that defined. So we've created our update jump power that it receives the player and the update function that needs to be run. We're going to define the new jump power from our player data, updating the value from our player data module. Our character is going to be defined by the player's character or a new character. And then, assuming it is a humanoid, we're going to set the jump power to the new jump power, which was defined earlier, or is passed to it. And then we will update the leaderboard for our stats to update that information as well. So we're moving right along, getting everything done. We're actually most of the way through this script. So let's set a function for the purchase power, or what happens when the player does a purchase of upgrading their jump. Okay, let's go through step by step what we just entered. So on purchase, jump increase. This is where we're checking to see, does the player have enough coins to be able to purchase it? And then if they are able to purchase the jump increase, updating that power, and then updating the amount of coins that the player has. So first thing we do is we get the coin amount that the player currently has. If that coin amount is less than the jump coin cost, then we return false. They were not able to be upgraded. They could not purchase the jump increase. Assuming that this doesn't happen, then we move on to setting our jump power increase, or update jump power. Pass it the player. We create a closure function, old jump power. The old jump power is set equal to old jump power or 0. So if this is the first time that this has been called and there is no old jump power, the value is set to 0. Then we return the old jump power and add the increment that was set up here, which is currently set at 30. We also update our coin amount. So we set a new coin amount, using the player data update value, using another closure to pass it function. It's nice to have a space in there for readability. And we return the old coin amount and subtract the jump coin cost. Notice that we didn't actually do this calculation. We're passing the calculation to the routine that called it. So it's automatically calculated for us and passes the new amount rather than calculating it and then passing that amount. And then finally, we update the leaderboard and we set the stat to how many coins they have left. And we return true. We were successful on purchasing the jump increase. Yay! The player can jump higher now. And then when a new player is added, on character added, we update our jump power, initializing the character's jump power to 0. Now, just as in previous scripts, we do need to add these functions to the actual game object. So let's initialize our player, just like we did for coins and hazards and everything else. We do a quick loop of all the players that are in the game and make sure that on character added, that we just added up here, the function that we just last created, is connected to every player so that we can automatically set their updated jump power to 0. Okay, just a couple more scripts and we'll be finished with this rather long script. When a player is added, just like our on character added, we then call player character added. We connect that function for on character added. which adds the jump power back into the character. So whether it's character added or player added, remote players, everything is updated correctly. And then if a player stops or disconnects, we need to remove them. Which, setting something to nil in Lua basically sets the variable available for garbage collection is no longer going to be available inside the environment. Okay, just a couple more lines and we're done. So we need, just as we did in our hazard, we do need to initialize each of these players and increase of jump power so that they're properly registered to the Lua system. So we've connected the increased jump power to our on-server invoke that we created up here. We've added the player add so that that's automatically invoked when this routine is first run. Same with player removing. So those are all now connected to the player, so when we're playing, everything will function smoothly. Yes, this can be a little confusing the first few times you do this. After you've done this a couple of times, created a few Roblox scripts or other Lua scripts, this is standard Lua scripting, so you'll get used to this. So now we need to add a new script to replicated storage. As we said before, replicated storage is information that is both on the client and the server. So this script will be able to run on the client. It doesn't have to run from the server. And this is to add the button to the client graphical user interface, or the player's GUI. So we're going to go up here to replicated storage, hit the plus sign, we're going to select script. And then the script we're going to call jump button click handler. So when the player clicks the button, this handles it. There we go. And you can see when you change the name in your properties, it does also change it up here in your Explorer. And then down here in our behaviors, we want this to run on the client. So click on the run context, and we're going to say client. So this is only running on the client, not on the server. And that'll be all kinds of fun, won't it? Okay, let's get rid of that hello world that we don't need, and we'll start coding. So first thing we need to do is load in the services that like we have been in the past. So let's load those in. And then we'll set up our standard variables. And this time we're also going to include a variable for the GUI. And this loads everything to do with the personalized player's GUI, which there's not a lot there right now, but it loads the player's GUI into a variable so that we can then interact with it. And now we've got our variables to store all the different instances that we've got here in our replicated storage for our increase button function, our jump power function, our jump purchase GUI, and the button itself. And now we just simply need to tell it what happens when someone clicks on the button. Okay, so our button on clicked asks for two variables, or creates two variables, success and purchased. It calls increased, let's spell that correctly or we'll get an error there. Increased jump power function, and it invokes it from the server, and also the variable, also misspelled, increase jump power function. Do I have that misspelled earlier? Yep, right up here, because that's where it was copying it from. That would be wrong. Don't want that. Okay, so it's passing it increase jump power function and increase jump power function. So one is invoked from the server. If the first one, our call to that server, if it is not successful, then an error happened with the purge. Something went wrong with our connection to the server. If it is successful, but the purchase did not happen, in other words, we connected to the server, but we were unable to complete the purchase, then we're going to put a warning message into our messages down here and warn that the player did not have enough coins. They didn't have enough money to complete the purchase. So we just simply need to connect this function to our button. So jump button dot activated, and we'll connect it to the on button clicked. And then purchase or jump purchase GUI dot parent is equal to the player GUI. And that connects everything up. So we are now ready for that exciting time that we wait for every time, playtesting. So let's hit that. And we do not have a button. So something went wrong. Looks like an error in jump service line 8 and coin service line 8. So, oh, well, go up a little bit further, we get a little bit more. So there's a comma missing from player data line 15. So let's stop, go to player data, line 15, player data jump key name. Yep, I made a mistake. Big shock, I know. We forgot to put a comma after this. Because this is in a table for our default player data, each of these need to be separated by a comma so that they are registered as different fields or items in our player data. And because it's a table, that's how tables work. Okay, let's hit play. See if we get any errors. No errors, that's a good sign. But we also don't have a button showing. That's not a good sign. So I've got a jump up there. And now I've got 5 coins, but I don't have a jump button, which should be located down here. So let's find out what's going on there. Okay, I figured the problem out. So let's see what's happening. Over here on our jump button, in our properties, currently the anchor point is set to 1, 1. Let's change that to 0, 0, which moves it from the bottom right corner being anchored to the top left of the button being anchored. So we'll hit play. And now you can see our button is showing up there. It's kind of hard to hit because of the chat box, but we can move it over. So we're going to hit stop again, and I'm going to go down here. Now, generally, most people nowadays are playing on a 1024 screen. So we're going to change the position of the X to an offset of 500 to get it about halfway across. And then on our Y, well, let's see how that looks. So we moved it over 500. And there it is. Now I'm running on a 4K screen, so it's much larger. There are ways to move this around relative to the screen size, but for right now we're just wanting to be able to click on the button. So we'll click stop. It'd be nice if that button was a little higher on our screen, so we're going to go back here to the Y position and set an offset to maybe -20 and hit play. And there's our button. Now we are able to click on it, which is my main goal. So we need to collect 5 coins. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and I gotta wait on something to rematerialize. And 5. Okay, now I've got 5 coins. I can hit the jump button, And you can see my jump power has now increased to 30, and so I'm now able to jump up to this first tool. I can collect another 5 coins. Go back here. How many have I got? We're up to 4, 5. Upgrade again, and now we're at 60, and I'm able to jump much higher. So we can keep doing that, gaining more jump power each time. So we've got our script working. If you have any questions about any of the scripts or any of the things that I did to get this working, make sure you let me know in the comments below.